Welcome back to X-Men Classics. This is episode 35. We're still in the Spotlight era. Sorry it's been a little while since I've done one of these, but I had to find something to do for the next episode. And we're still in the Spotlight era, like I said. Now, to Spotlight era, I've almost covered everything for it as of right now. Aside from the stuff I'm going to review in this episode, there's still also going to be at least 5 issues from Avengers, issues 102 to 104 and 110 and 111. Those are going to get reviewed soon. The final issue of Shaun of the She-Devil, that's going to be reviewed. Let me think. What else? Oh yeah, I think there's some issues of Marvel Team Up I'm going to do, which featured the X-Men during this period of time. And oh yes, and last but not least, there are 4 issues of Captain America I'm going to cover, which are issues 172 to 175. I'm going to cover those soon, but I wanted to get these 2 done first. Now, in the case of this particular story, it takes place after Avengers 111, but I haven't got a chance to review it yet, but I figured, oh, why not do this now while I have the material in front of me. Okay? Now, get out of the way. First, we're going to cover 2 different books, 5 issues, even though it's a little bit more than I usually do, but I feel like covering both of them just to get them out of the way. First up, it's Defenders, number 15. Yep. Some of you who don't know who Defenders are, they're a group of basically not very known Marvel characters. I mean, when they first formed back in the early 70s, there were 4 people who started this group, unlike the Avengers, which had 5. One of whom was the founding member of the Avengers, which was the Hulk. Yes, you have the Hulk, Doctor Strange, the Sorcerer Supreme, Namor the Submariner, and the Silver Surfer. Doctor Strange and Namor later became members of the Avengers. They later became Avengers afterwards. In the case of Namor, it was about a decade after he had already left the Defenders, and Doctor Strange then became a member of the Avenger. Then become Avenger himself until Brian Michael Bendis, until about 9 years ago when he became an Avenger officially. But at this point in time, Namor had already left the group. He quit because of privacy reasons, and Silver Surfer disappeared. Yeah, he was briefly part of the group. They added, in issue 4, they added Valkyrie to the team. And in the previous issue, in issue 14, which is the same issue Namor left, they added this guy, Nighthawk. Yeah, he was a character. Yeah, here he is. He was a character created by Roy Thomas during his run for Avengers. So, yeah. So you have most of the founding members of Defenders, the 4 founding members, at least 2 of whom Stan Lee has credit for basically creating them, which is Silver Surfer and the Hulk. Steve Ditko, Stan Lee basically refused to take credit for it, despite the fact he did write his first appearance. Steve Ditko created Doctor Strange. As the Submariner, he was created by the late Bill Everett. He also later on did other books for Stan. Basically, he was an artist, and basically one of his biggest known creations was in fact the Submariner. Jack Kirby created the Hulk and the Silver Surfer with Stan Lee. But in this particular 2-parter, the Defenders take on the Brotherhood of Mutants, and there is a reason, which I will explain to when I get to it. Now, pretty much, this picks up like not long after the events of what happened previously. Now, I should point out who is the writer and artist of these particular 2 issues. Now, the writer of these 2 issues is Len Wein, the guy who co-created Swamp Thing with Brian Wrightington. And the artist for this particular issue is Sal Buscema and Klaus Johnson. The issue opens up with basically Nighthawk and Valkyrie. They're visiting Doctor Strange, and they're just seeing him doing one of his usual sticks that he loves to do, just show off some magic. And yeah, Doctor Strange like I thought it was funny when Len basically had him say a joke. It says, "Where do you hide the pool table?" Yeah, that's kind of funny. He says, and Doctor Strange's like, "Forgive me, Nighthawk. I own no pool table." I didn't recall you did, Doc. It was just a joke, a bit of a lousy one. Yeah, it's so funny. Yeah, he's sulking because he got a new uniform. Yeah, he got a bit of an updated uniform from his previous appearance because it had been wrecked in the previous issue. I will, in fact, later on do my own retrospective on this series. But, yeah, he gets a jetpack so he doesn't fly his Hawk plane. Now, in some ways, Nighthawk is supposed to be Marvel's version of Batman. He's one of 3 characters consider that, along with Moon Knight and Night Thrasher. Night Thrasher is a little more closer because he actually lost his parents when he was a kid. In the case of Nighthawk, he's a little more closer to being Batman because not only is he rich, he actually sort of has like a creature with wings motif. And he mentioned his Hawk plane. Something that Mark Spector does not have. He has a mooncopter. And as for Night Thrasher, he doesn't have a signature vehicle. Not that I can think of anyways. Now, he got a new uniform, so they show up to jetpack, and apparently, yeah. And also on this page, Valkyrie drops a bombshell that she's leaving the Defenders. And she wants him to stay as a replacement, and Doctor Strange and Namor and Nighthawk are like, what? Nighthawk had joined as someone else's replacement. Why is he replacing somebody else? Yeah, this makes no sense. And in case you're wondering, where the heck is the Hulk? Hulk is doing whatever he wants. He just shows up whenever he feels like it. Yeah, that's how normally he was written when he was in this series, but he was pretty serious as a Defender. But he needs she's worried about some place where he keep her horse. The horse was originally owned by the Black Knight, and after the Enchantress made him turn into a statue, she kept the horse. And as for there were 2 Pegasus in the Marvel Universe that I can think of. One is owned by Valkyrie. The other, of course, was owned by the Black Knight from the Vatican. That one, of course, was later hunted and killed by Kraven the Hunter's son. That happened in the 2000s, by the way. He hunted, killed it, and ate it. I'm not kidding. Basically, because the fact he reveals, though, yeah, he's a tycoon under his mask, Kyle Richmond. He decided to call up his sort of someone who's in charge of his finances, Pennyworth. They never reveal his first name. Interesting fact about this particular character: his son in the last Defender series, Nighthawk, would train to be his successor. I'm not joking. As for the character himself, he's not shown here. He's shown later on what a guy looks like. So basically, he buys a writing academy, which later becomes second headquarters of Defenders. After a while of them stop using Doctor Strange's house as their base operations. So while Nighthawk and Valkyrie are talking with a horse, apparently Doctor Strange is talking to somebody who apparently is not there, and it turns out it's actually Charles Xavier. Yep. Now, he basically is calling upon them to... he asked for assistance. Now, he says normally he would have the X-Men do this, but they're off something else in Marvel Team 23, which I will eventually cover. Just not in this episode, but probably later episode. So, yeah, even Doctor Strange is like, why would you call upon us when you have your own team? He says, he can't refuse if something revolving the Earth, like defense of the planet, he'll like, oh yeah, okay, fine, we'll be in New Mexico. Let's see, I think the place in New Mexico, they said, Carlsbad Caverns. That's what they said. I have no idea where that place is. I don't know if it's in New Mexico. 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 It's and I personally have never been to New Mexico. And one interesting fact about New Mexico, that was known for being the base operations for the Hulk and Thor from the 60s to the 80s. Hulk later on became his base operations shifted to Las Vegas, but a lot of time Hulk wanted to be alone, but basically his favorite place to be is the desert, so he lived in New Mexico for years, and Donald Blake lived in New Mexico as well. So these two were the only ones who operated in New Mexico normally. Thor, meanwhile, he operated out of New Mexico up until the 90s. Then he moved to New York. Don't know why, but he did. So basically, Doctor Strange calls upon the Hulk for his assistance. He's like, okay, fine. He needs his awesome strength. And he's like, you need my strength? Hulk will come, for Hulk is the strongest there is. Yeah, he loves saying that catchphrase. It's one of his two things he loves to say. The other, of course, is Hulk smash. So they go off flying to New Mexico and they meet up with Charles Xavier, and apparently it's kind of revealed here that Doctor Strange and Charles Xavier know each other for years, and this will come later to play in modern day when Bendis established a retcon that Charles Xavier and Doctor Strange, along with Reed Richards, Black Bolt, and Iron Man, are part of a secret group of men known as Illuminati. Yep, it's indeed true. So everybody comes and they're searching for whatever basically requires their assistance, and they run into some demon, and while everybody else is attacking a demon, Charles Xavier tells Doctor Strange, do not attack it. Apparently it's an illusion cast by Mastermind, and this lineup is one of the most interesting lineups I have seen. Now you have three people who have, aside from Magneto himself, who was part of the group, but you have one new member, Lorelei. Yeah, this is the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, first time showing up in this issue. Yep, and so they basically held Defenders and, of course, Xavier captive in this mental prison, which they're briefly kept there. Oh, as for what this tube is, I'll explain that in a minute. Apparently, he is and according to Doctor Strange, he's like, I thought you were captured by the Avengers. He's like, yeah, I was, but and of course explaining this flashback that he was definitely captured by the Avengers, and he was sent, and he basically freed himself and got back to Earth, got this underground civilization, built this machine, looked at some books, recruited his Brotherhood mutants again. Basically recruited Universe Untouchable, Mastermind, and the Blob, and of course he recruited Lorelei. And basically, this tube is basically what he was creating is the ultimate mutant. His name is Alpha, by the way, in case anybody's wondering. Oh, and by the way, later on, these particular two issues are referenced later on in Chris Claremont's run when he does follow up on this. So they're all like hold perfectly still, contract very hard, and they'll break it, and they do. They break it. Yep. Defenders are free, and so the Defenders basically attack the Brotherhood, while the Hulk attacks the Blob, Valkyrie attacks Universe Untouchable, and Mastermind and Charles Xavier attack Mastermind. Actually, it's Doctor Strange attacking by himself, and it's Nighthawk and Charles Xavier attacking Lorelei. But and here's something quite funny. While the Hulk is attacking the Blob, he says nothing can. Says, you waste your time, Robbie. Ain't nothing that can hurt me once I rooted myself down like this. And Hulk's like, Flabby Man is rooted to the ground, so Hulk will uproot Flabby Man, so he smashes the ground and it beats the crap out of him. and of course you have Doctor Strange like, yeah, Mastermind's illusions are gonna exhaust him, so he casts his own illusions. Look at this, it looks like about 5 different Doctor Stranges, and Man's like, no, I'm so confused, and he gets attacked. Yeah, without his illusion powers, the guy is extremely weak. That's the thing about Mastermind, he's extremely weak. And somehow, Charles Xavier's still battling Lorelei with Nighthawk, and while Blob is, and apparently the Defenders defeated the Brotherhood, and they unveil and Magneto unveils Alpha, the Ultimate Mutant, at the end of the issue. And we cut to Defenders number 16. Yeah. We finally get a chance to see what the guy looks like. This is Alpha. This big guy right here. This is Alpha, the Ultimate Mutant. Oh, and as far as I know, these two issues are his only appearance that he's ever made. I don't think this guy's ever returned. He's been seen in flashbacks. Also, I should mention, Klaus Johnson is not doing the artwork for this issue. It's Sal Bushman doing the artwork by himself. No change in the writer. So, while Magneto is like, oh yeah, become master of the world, Doctor Strange attacks Alpha, and like strength, and and then the Hulk attacks Alpha. He fails, and of course the Brotherhood get up after being knocked out. And it looks like the Magneto apparently kills Xavier and the Defenders. But they do survive. They trap them in a way. He says Alpha takes away from this place, fine. And they just... So, they dig the way out, and they do. They get out. Despite the fact the place is falling, everybody gets out. So, they decide to head to New York because that's where he said he's going to go. Well, actually read his mind and went to New York City. So here's Magneto and the Brotherhood walking the streets of New York like they own the place. Yep. Yeah, and of course the guards went like, oh yeah, we remember you. Yeah, that was from Avengers 49. And of course they're taken out very easily. And of course Magneto takes out a couple more guards. And he makes a speech that he's going to take over the world, like he usually does at this point in time before he became a good guy. And he says, Alpha, time to help your mutants. And he says, help. And what he does is that he lifts the entire UN complex into the sky. Wow, that is amazing. Everyone's like shocked the fact that that Alpha was able to lift up the UN. So the Defenders all go up there, and they all take on some Rockmen, and apparently one thing I kind of noticed, and you also notice the way Sal Bushman draws him, apparently his head is looking very similar to that of Charles Xavier. Yeah, apparently his head's getting bigger. Even Charles Xavier's noticing that. Not the fact his face looks like him, but his head's growing bigger. And basically, Charles Xavier tells him that the Defenders are not evil, he is. And he reads his mind and is like, yeah, he's telling the truth. And so he does a little judgment thing in this wonderful page by Sal Bushman. I'm like, why the heck can't you draw things like this anymore? Apparently, in the 80s, make characters a little bit blocky for some reason. So he does something quite unique to the Brotherhood. One of the most strangest things. He turns them into babies. I am not kidding. He turns the Brotherhood into babies, and everybody's like, "What?" Okay, everybody's like gone, and Defenders are left with the babies, and that's that. 2 awesome issues. Highly recommend you try tracking it, preferably probably in this or maybe some other trade. Marvel does. I give those 2 issues a 9.5 out of 10. Awesome. Next up is Fantastic Four 102 to 104. First up, Fantastic Four 102. Normally I would not have included these issues, despite the fact they feel much more like a regular issues of Fantastic Four what they normally do. But the only reason I'm including these 3 issues is because Magneto is in them. And it was later retconned by John Byrne that apparently Havoc witnessed the events of these issues. So yeah, I was really considering not to, but Magneto's in here, so I gotta throw him in there. So there's really not much in the case of these issues when it comes to Magneto. I mean, Magneto himself in 102 doesn't show up for a little while. I mean, mostly it's just Fantastic Four dealing with stuff that they previously did, like Crystal giving some medicine because apparently he's got a cold. Noah family stuff. Yeah, and both Stan Lee and Jack Kirby do this issue. Yep. So, and we cut away to Namor and Amber's remaining your post and to investigate the area. Apparently, some kind of explosion, and apparently it's Magneto after some previous thing that happened in the X-Men books. Yeah, because the X-Men Hidden Years crosses over with this particular thing. So, John Byrne decided to have the series in while it's connecting to this particular 3-part storyline, which really has nothing to do with the overall Spotlight era. Just Magneto, just chilling with Magneto. It's a really interesting little storyline. I'm not going to go full in depth into this like I normally do with the other things, but yeah. I mean, the whole point of these 3 issues is that Magneto teams up with Namor to do some world scheme like he normally does, and everything is going haywire. Tries to take on the Fantastic Four, and also I gotta keep showing off Jack Kirby's awesome artwork. It's too bad I can never meet the guy. I mean, the guy passed away 23 years ago. I would have loved to meet the guy if he was still alive, so I can ask him, like, how the heck does he draw this awesome artwork? Yeah. I talked to one person who actually has met him, Jim Shooter. He said he was a fun guy to be around. But the thing about these 3 issues is that they're epic, and Nixon himself shows up in here, yeah, because of, well, yeah, it's Marvel's sliding time scale, and they meet pretty much like every single president. And yes, this president, Nixon, also shows up in the final issue of X-Men Hidden Years. But they're really interesting they're an interesting set of issues to read. Of course, Magneto does take Lorna, Lady Dorma, and Sue Storm hostage, while Namor tries one of his schemes to try to invade New York. And at one point, Nixon gives him orders to stop Namor. They fail, and he tries to convince them that Namor's not behind this. It's Magneto. He doesn't immediately. I don't know why Stanley wrote Nixon to be somewhat of an idiot. He's not evil. I'm glad I didn't write him like that. But it's a really epic scale of a 3-parter to read. It's a really interesting 3-parter to read in the case of Fantastic Four, but in the end, Fantastic Four do defeat Magneto. Everybody gets to read in Namor, get their loved ones back, and Magneto goes away, does whatever. It's a pretty interesting little 3-parter, but I rather not spoil it. You gotta read it to see for yourself. But that's it for this episode. Stay tuned for the next episode, which will be episode 36, and it will be audio only. But I haven't decided which book I'm going to do for it yet, but it's definitely going to be audio only. Okay? And it's going to be audio only for the next few episodes while I cover the rest of the X-Men Spotlight era before I head back to the X-Men series, where I start covering the Chris Claremont era. Okay? But until then, I will see you there. Bye.